I want to talk about liberation and oppression. Conservatives think people are just bad in their nature. And so when you're talking about how to solve a problem, you have to increase the oppression because people, when left to their own devices, are going to do bad things. The leftist and liberal says, hey, actually, when you look at the data, oppression just leads to more problems. And so if you have to provide liberation such that people aren't driven to do bad things. I'm going to give two examples. There's lots more, but that's crime and work ethic. When it comes to crime, conservatives believe people are going to commit crimes. It doesn't matter what you do, criminal's gonna criminal. So you have to increase the oppression, the police, to scare them out of doing it. Whereas the leftist says, what does the data say? When you invest in bringing people out of poverty and you put resources into communities to keep people from being desperate and to keep people occupied by giving them outlets for their energy, they commit crimes to start with less. So your belief of human nature also leads to what you think prison should be. The conservative says prison has to be about punishment. You have to scare people and force them out of doing crimes by making prison awful. Whereas the leftist says in prison systems in Sweden and in Norway, when instead of on punishment, you focus on rehabilitation, people that leave commit crimes again less. That's lower recidivism rates. You focus on providing them mental health resources, financial resources, the materials to reintegrate into society. What better way to guarantee, number one, that people stay in poverty? When people are imprisoned, they are allowed to make less than minimum wage. They are allowed to literally be put back into slavery. The 13th Amendment, which liberated the slaves, has an exception for if you are being punished for a crime. Do you think that that's going to set you up well financially when you get out of prison? But number two, if we transitioned prison to being about rehabilitation instead of punishment, we would lower recidivism rates. And so you create a prison system that keeps people in poverty and is punishment focused to make it more likely that when they get out, they commit crimes again, and the for-profit prison system profits. The second part of this is work ethic. You can see the rant I have on capitalism, but if a system doesn't guarantee that its people's basic necessities like shelter and food and healthcare are being met, isn't that a failure of a system? The conservative says, well, people are lazy sacks of shit. And so if you want people to work, you have to light a fire under their ass by holding their necessities hostage. Whereas the leftist says, well, what does the data say? You can find studies in California, Finland, where they guaranteed some level of basic income. It actually showed that people pursued full-time employment slightly more. If we have a fallback option where we can take a minute to get back onto our feet, then we don't have to stay at jobs that treat us like garbage. And so employers have to treat you like human beings. And when you're treated like a human being, you're going to want to go work for that. So think about that. The next time you hear a conservative talking about a problem, you assume that people are just bad instead of saying maybe they were driven to do a bad thing. What was the thing that drove them to do that bad thing?